Welcome back to Three Men and a Mystery. I'm John Lorden.
I'm Mike Morford.
And I'm Gray Hughes.
Today we're back with episode 4 of season 3, Tattooed Tears, the story of Allyson Watterson. On today's episode, a family hears what no family ever wants to hear. Law enforcement starts working the case, media starts sharing the story, and Allyson's family, friends, and a supportive community start working together to search for her.
I spoke to Allison's aunt to learn more about Allison.
My name is Billie Macy. I am Misty Watterson's sister, and I am Allison's aunt. She used to call me Auntie Billie. She, could make me laugh, and I could make her laugh while nobody might be laughing with us. Allison's always, come over to wherever I live for sleepovers all the time, her and her brother, Blake. We used to cook together. She absolutely loved just making 3-4 course meals, loved to bake, loved to go on walks. I've always had pets, so she's always, helped me care for my pets. We loved to go camping, go on adventures. We would spontaneously I'd get hotel rooms and, like Bend or, near Washington, and we would just go and explore the area. We loved to just, go do day trips to lakes or beaches. She would contact me pretty regularly and ask me for advice. If she wanted to complain about our mom, I would, be there to listen. Yeah, she was a very, very dear family member to me. And, I believe I was that to her as well.
I also asked Billie about Allison's personality.
I would say she's very typical, 20-year-old, if you will. Maybe even she might have been maybe a little immature for her age. Meaning, I don't think Allison really understood what it was like to follow her intuition. I don't know if she could really tap into that intuitive side of herself to say, okay, there's this voice, it's telling me no, don't do this, or, yes, I should do this, and then go for that. It's almost like she was fighting with her intuition at times.
Were there any specific situations or events that you remember that maybe sort of demonstrate that?
Well, there were a million different moments, that are just these tiny little, where she would message me and be like, okay, Auntie, I'm gonna go. We'd be getting off the phone. I'm like, what are you doing? It'd be late, 10 o'clock at night. She's like, I'm gonna go to my friend's house. I'm like, how are you getting there? She's like, an Uber or by yourself. And we live in our family, we are very much you don't, safety in numbers, you need to really think about who's taking you, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get back? How are you going to, and none of that was really planned out. And she was just very trusting when I don't think trust is, what we want to apply to the situation. It's more logic. Well, I mean, let's just talk about her going out with Ben. I know that she had just started to feel better about their breakup. She was getting back to her old self again. She was, starting to live life again. And then out of nowhere, we find out she's with him. And I just believe in my heart, her intuition was probably telling her not to do that, not to go out to this very unfamiliar place with these unfamiliar people, with this man that just keeps breaking your heart. That in itself is just speaks to not listening to that voice.
And what was Aunt Billie's take on Ben? Did she want them dating?
I would never in a million years want that to happen. Never. I wanted nothing more than for her to move on, for him to move on, and for her to move on. He just wasn't that. He was not the type of individual that most people would want to see their loved one with. The way he would come in and out of her life, he would just use her. He was, a drug addict. He was very disrespectful to her brother, Blake. He would steal while they would hang out. I could go on and on. No, he was not. He had a warrant out for his arrest. There was just multiple reasons why her mother, her father, her brother, myself, her friends. In fact, Allison told a friend that she wanted to knit a scarf of all the red flags that Ben had been giving her since she met him.
As a matter of fact, Allison's friend Megan actually wrote a poem called Red Flags about their relationship and the disappearance of Allison, and here are some excerpts from that poem. We were both miserably in love with being miserable. You vanished into thin air, nowhere to be found. They have searched every inch. Even I, thousands of miles away, search for you in my mind, in my heart, my soul, and in my memories. Aquamarine strands dyed midnight black as those Pacific blue eyes lost sight of yourself, transcend to a vast essence of an evil horror film in the making. It is no dream, no nightmare. This is your life, dear, and yet it was my nightmare. But I won't ever wake up. You told yourself time and time again, yet still never listening to intuition. You signed the contract without reading the fine print. You made yourself a nice scarf with all those red flags.
Aunt Billie explains what she went through when her sister Misty told her Allison was missing.
The evening that she called me, she said, Ben left her in the woods. She's missing. They called the police. And I couldn't even, I literally couldn't speak. I lost motor control. I have 4 children and a grandchild. I can handle some things, but I lost my ability to even speak or my motor skills. I had to really pull it together so I could go out. And then once we got into the area, it was there is just this cathartic feeling that comes up inside you. I don't know if this is going to turn out. I didn't know if I was going to see her again. So it wasn't anger. It was fear. It was just fear. It was just total fear
of what might have been going on, what might have been happening to her at that moment, or what might have already happened to her.
Yeah, I thought, she's missing. Why? Why would she go missing? It just seems like such a weird. It's not like she went to a friend's house and the friends they left. She got on public transit. There just seemed to be this circumstantial. He left her in the woods in North Plains. I know she's never been to North Plains. We already don't have any trust in the world for Ben. And now she's missing. Once we established that there was going to be a search party, I started to feel maybe a little more protected. I felt maybe, okay, we have, a search and rescue. We have them on our side. Maybe she's just, we can find her. I just thought, okay, the hope started to build. During that time, though, we started to hear the family's story about when they last saw her, when he came home without her, when Misty was reaching out looking for her and she wasn't getting any answers. I think the wheels started spinning that this might actually be a little more than what it looks like.
Gray, you got some thoughts on what we've heard from Aunt Billie so far?
Yeah, it just seems like every one of them didn't want Allison dating Ben. And, but people follow their hearts, and it's just a absolute tragedy that, she ended up being with him and then she goes missing. And at this point, nobody knows where she is.
What do you think, Morph?
Yeah, it sounds like Aunt Billie's a caring aunt that is just looking out for her niece and looking at things from a different perspective, maybe that Allison can't see things from. As young people that are in love or have boyfriends or girlfriends, they just get lost in this euphoria. and they don't see some of the negatives. But it sounds like Aunt Billie was definitely seeing things from a different view.
That's probably the thing that's grabbing my heart most about this case is, I remember being young, and I remember having warnings from family members about certain situations I was getting into, and you kind of are operating off the history that you have and the experience that you have in this world. And a lot of times you get these warnings and you kind of do things anyway, and then everything turns out okay, or comes out fine, or you get what you want. And in this situation, you have so many different people they're getting pieces of this story from Allison that this is not a good situation. And they're trying to lead her kind of out of it. And ultimately, she doesn't do that. I think she goes with her gut, or she goes with her previous experience. And this is where we wind up. And it's terrible. Another thing we haven't really detailed on the show so far, but we've got through some research, is Misty is effectively told that Allison is going with a different friend to this party. Misty was not aware that Allison was actually going with Ben on that Friday. It wasn't until over the course of the weekend that in some messages exchanged, she came to figure out that Allison was actually with Ben. Yeah, and just to be clear, some of that information is coming from a recent podcast that has been released on The Vanished about this case as well. And of course, we want to thank Marissa for doing her excellent work there. It was released right in the middle of our production, so we're going to try to see if we can maybe help clarify some of those points and get some different details on that as well. Go ahead, Gray.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're young, you make a lot different decisions too when you're in love, because you don't have the life experiences to see what's actually going on, and you just go with your heart, and a lot of times that turns into a disaster for a lot of different people.
Yeah, and these are the cases that get me the worst, because I keep trying to put myself in those situations, and it's like, how do we learn? We go through bad experiences so that we learn about these things for ourselves. But in some of these stories that we cover, we find out that people never get a second chance to learn from that experience, and that's truly a tragedy.
Aunt Billie says we're hearing different stories from Ben's family, and we'll learn more about that right after this break.
Diabolical.
Vengeance.
Betrayal.
Bad hair.
Leaning.
Hi everyone, this is Kimberly.
And this is Katie.
And we have a weekly podcast called A Date with Dateline, a recap of Dateline episodes. We talk about important issues like grainy surveillance footage, cell phone towers, Andrea Canning's white jeans, and Mankey's hankies. We delve into the details of any victim who's ever loved life or lit up a room.
So find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and iTunes to make A Date with Dateline.
And remember, don't watch alone.
A Date with Dateline is a podcast hosted by two professional amateur true crime TV experts with no formal training but evidence lockers filled with snark and uninformed opinions.
Welcome back, and please keep in mind that our sponsors are helping us raise funds that will go towards investigating this case further, so please show them the same support they're showing us.
Aunt Billie told us what she heard about the phone calls from Ben's mother, Molly.
My sister reached out to Ben's mom and said, hey, my sister originally thought she was reaching out to Ben's sister, but it ended up being his mom. And she said, have you heard from my daughter? She's with Ben, and I can't find her. I can't reach her. Ben's mom said, yeah, I gave him a ride, and I bought him a pie and then dropped them off. And I mean, she just left out so many important details. The fact that she dropped Allison off barefoot in December, the fact that, they were barely wearing layers of clothes, the fact that they were almost like allegedly robbed and that the police were at the location that she picked them up. I just find those things really necessary, especially when you think somebody's missing. She also said that when Ben came home the next morning without her, Ben had told her that Allison was arrested. He said that she walked up towards this dog that was barking and that she was arrested. And then him and his mom allegedly looked, for her on Washington County website, Multnomah County, to see if they didn't find her there. They called hospitals. And then the next thing, they don't even call my sister. And my sister had already said, "Hey, me again. Have you heard from my daughter?" And Molly didn't even bother to say, "Hey, by the way, Ben came home and said Allison was arrested." That was at like 7:30 in the morning. At 12, his dad and him went out searching for Allison. And then at 12:30, Molly got a hold of Misty and said, "Hey, have you heard anything?" And of course, Misty was like, "No, I still haven't heard anything." And then a few hours later, they called 911 to report her missing, saying that Ben and her were going on a hike. They didn't call Misty to say, "Hey, did she make it home?" Because we're about to call Washington County. They just made the call.
As the official search begins, so does the media coverage. On Christmas Eve 2019, OregonLive.com posted an article titled, "Search and Rescue Team Scours North Plains Area Woods for Missing 20-Year-Old Woman." The events of Allison's disappearance are a bit different in the media, saying that Allison and her boyfriend were hiking in the area of Pumpkin Ridge Road on Sunday, December 22nd, when the two got separated. It details that Allison had a red backpack with her on Sunday and was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, black jeans, and brown Calvin Klein boots. KGW.com reported that between 75 to 100 trained search and rescue people were out in North Plains looking for any sign of Watterson. Washington County Sheriff's Office Detective Mark Pavalny noted that Allison wasn't reported missing until the night of December 23rd, a 30-hour gap. Quote, "That delay is concerning to us, and we're trying to put together what happened," he said. Despite the story about hiking that was being relayed by Ben's family, Detective Pavalny said investigators do not believe the couple was actually hiking. They do think that Ben gave them some helpful information, however. Pavalny did not label Garland as a suspect or person of interest in the case. Quote, "We don't make assumptions of what might have happened," he said. Some clues were found during these initial searches that refocused the search areas. At the time, those details weren't released, but stay tuned for a future episode where we go into all the physical evidence that relates to this case and helps give us kind of a trail of where Ben and Allison went. KOIN.com noted some of the search efforts, which included a K-9 unit. Quote, "We are also being helped by the Pacific Northwest Search and Rescue, who are out of Clackamas County," Washington County Deputy Brian Van Cleef said. "We are very grateful for their help as well." He noted that a lot of the search area is private property and said that authorities did a reverse 911 call to sort of speed things up and reach out to those property owners. Deputy Tony Morris said the sheriff's office expanded the canvas area and plans to deploy drones and helicopters. On day 3 of the search, Fox 12 noted that the sheriff's office had requested helicopters and crews from the National Guard. The search was difficult because the terrain was heavily wooded with large bushes and some steep areas, and that was very tough on those search crews. To see all the efforts and volunteers spending time away from their own families during Christmas, working to help find Allison, is both touching and inspiring. It's also reported that Christmas was Allison's favorite time of the year. Of course, someone else that went to the scene to help was our very own Gray Hughes. Gray, how did you initially hear about this case?
I heard about it on Facebook, and it's a local story to me. It's only within 15 miles or so in North Plains. So I was just immediately like, whoa, something in my backyard, because we don't really have a lot of bigger stories out here.
Yeah. So you decided to just head out. Was there a particular function you were hoping to do, or?
Yeah, well, what I did was I just had purchased a drone last year, a nice one, a Mavic 2 Pro, and I drove out there and I thought, well, gosh, maybe I can use it to help find her, because it's getting late. It was like 3:30 when I actually got out there, and that time of year it gets dark in the 4 o'clock hour.
Which day?
On the 24th, so it was Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And then I drove over to the North Plains elementary school, because that's where they said on Facebook, that's where they said that they were all meeting. And so when I went there, there were law enforcement and searchers were in one door, and then in the foyer were all these family members, and that's where I saw Misty Watterson, Allison's mother, and she gave me the address to where to go search.
So what at the school, how many people did you see in terms of like law enforcement, and then how many people were in the volunteer section?
I wasn't able to see into that room, but I know that there seemed to be a lot of cars there. I did talk to the sheriff for a moment, and he said, I mentioned the address. He said, yep, that's where we're at. And so I went out there and I flew my drone. But to go back to what you were just saying, in the room where Misty was, there was probably 15 or 20 family members in there kind of huddled up. They were just all like, confused and what's going on. It's just absolutely a crazy time when you have a family member missing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they don't have the expertise of like, Tim Miller's not in there laying out, hey, this is what you guys got to do. And, here's a map. And was there any law enforcement that you saw that was interacting with the family to kind of help them organize the volunteer effort?
Well, I wasn't there very long. I'm sure that they spoke to them prior to that.
Yeah.
I just pulled up, walked over there, got the address, and I pretty much drove away and went up to the spot. And then I flew my drone kind of in a back and forth grid pattern over a specific area, and I didn't see anything. When I went and looked at it later, I was on a piece of property that Ben said he last saw Allison at. And I flew the drone. The first night, I parked on the road and then flew it out over there. And then the owners came up and said, oh, yeah, good. Yeah, we're glad you're doing this. And they started driving around on their four-wheelers. And, like I said, I didn't see anything. So the next day I drove back out there on Christmas. And then I walked like 30 feet onto the property to fly the drone. And then he came running up and got upset. And then at that same time, the head of the searching party came up and they started talking. And I just kind of packed up my stuff and left. Yeah, I can tell you that it's not really a hiking area whatsoever. And you have, there's homes, really nice homes, and then some not so nice homes, but they're just on the side of the road. It's not a place that you would definitely go park your car and go, hey, let's go hiking and, make a day of it. So that definitely wasn't a true story.
Interesting. What was reviewing the footage like in terms of the drone footage? How long did it take you to go through it?
Yeah, well, basically, I just watch it at regular speed, and if something looks interesting, I slow it down. But I probably recorded maybe 15 or 20 minutes and just looked on the ground as it was going by. And I'm not an expert at that yet. I'd like to kind of develop that skill, but I just thought, gosh, if I can help in some way. So I went out there and tried to do what I could, and I didn't find anything, but
well, and obviously you've helped in other ways. You helped raise a bunch of exposure to this case as it was going on through your channel, and of course, when we were talking about doing season 3, this is the case that you wanted to do. So I know that Misty appreciates that.
And Billie also joined the search efforts.
So the first 5 days, they had official search and rescue out. And they did do civilian searches. And I did do 2 of those searches in 5 days. It wasn't the easiest thing, to kind of go through. Also, we were just on the outskirts, like on the roads. They wouldn't let us go into the brush, 1, because it was private property, and 2, because they were doing their part. But after 5 days, when they suspended the search, my sister immediately said to friends and family, okay, we're going to establish, search parties. And so we got out there, boots on the ground, immediately. And yes, we did. I did many, many searches for Allison. It's really, honestly, actually a better feeling. You think, okay, this property doesn't have her. It's starting to look more and more like, okay, well, if we're not going to find something terrible, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe the possibility exists that, she's just with somebody, or, maybe as terrible as it sounds, maybe she's just been picked up and somebody's holding her. Like you start to create these scenarios in your head that would make it so that you see her again. And when you don't find her out there, those scenarios become more and more what you're looking for and realistic.
So let me add something here. I went out there multiple times after that, and they would all meet in this parking lot near the McDonald's in North Plains. And it was amazing. I mean, Misty had, 30, 40 people out there, with some people with tracking dogs, some people, just a lot of different people that would search, and they would go over to properties and send everybody off in different directions and send in their information. It was absolutely incredible. I think everybody would want a mother like Misty if you ever went missing. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's important that we point out that we reached out to Ben's mother, Molly, but she told us that she's refusing to be interviewed by anyone other than law enforcement. Aunt Billie gives us some comments on Molly's involvement.
Molly talked to our private investigator one time. The dad who was searching for Allison, the mom who saw Allison last, they have never even spoken to Washington County detectives. If their child was missing, I believe that they would hope that the people that last saw him or her would be like, hey, this is what I heard. This is what I saw. This is what I did. They won't even do that. They won't even be a part of that. I mean, just like, can we just have the story, please?
Yeah.
And if the story is innocent, and it just changes so many times. Molly told us in the very, very beginning that Ben, she walked away from Ben and said, she threw up her arms allegedly and said, I'm just going to go. I just want to die anyway. I'm just going to go die. That's a direct quote from his mom. We've never heard that since. We've heard that he left her, that she left him. There is literally not a solid, when an event happens, you have what happens from beginning to end. When you have a story, there's all sorts of room for amendments. And that's what we're seeing. So many amended stories. And why is that? We're not trying to create a crime out of, thin air. That's not what's happening here. We really want to hear what exactly happened with our Allison. It's only fair that we have that. So, and that's just, they have all those answers. I believe it. I believe they have those answers.
There's one person that wouldn't be helping in the search for Allison, and that's her on-again, off-again boyfriend and the last person to be seen with her, Benjamin Hunter Garland. And it's due to him being arrested. We'll get into those details on the next episode. But right now, I want to ask you guys, Aunt Billie has given us so much great information. I just want to say thank you to Billie as well. It's pretty clear that either she thinks there's some misinformation or there's some type of cover-up. She's pointing out that there are several different stories they're being told and they don't understand why. Do you think she's right that this is it just people getting things wrong, or is there some type of effort here to cover up what actually happened? Gray?
Well, I think there has to be some sort of an effort here. I mean, especially when you have Allison at the fire station and then the police show up. Ben's mother shows up. It doesn't even mention that at all to Misty later. And there's other information about the trip to the pie shop where apparently she doesn't have socks on, that Allison doesn't have socks on. And, Ben's mother gives her some socks, but then you drop her off at some random place at some other time without shoes. I mean, what responsible adult would do something like that? It's unbelievable. I feel like there's a lot of just absolute irresponsible behavior on the Garland side of this.
Morph?
Yeah, my bullshit meter's definitely going off. If it was just one thing that seemed out of place or didn't make sense, maybe I could explain that away. But there's a combination of different things and statements here that just don't add up. And look really suspicious. And again, we did ask her and her family to come on to tell their side of it. They declined, and that some people would say that makes them look even more guilty, like they're hiding something. I don't know that to be the case, but in my book, it certainly doesn't help shift some of that what looks like smoke and mirrors. That it doesn't help clear that up at all for me.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not sure if they know the truth for themselves. I think there's a possibility that they're used to operating in this way. Maybe they're used to trying to help Ben out of bad situations he's been in before. I think as we look into his criminal record on the next episode, we're going to get a better sense of that or not. And I honestly don't know. I don't know if they have better information or if this is just scattershot approach, put out a bunch of all these different stories and send everyone on a wild goose chase. But in a case this serious where you have someone missing, you would like to think that people would kind of see around that and say, hey, even if this gets my son into some level of trouble or something, we've got to do the right thing here. And the silly thing is, we know at this point, at least he's getting arrested for something. So whatever you're trying to protect him from, how much worse could it be than the fact that he's already being arrested? And we'll get into that more as we get into the charges on the next episode. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know if they really know. And especially seeing and hearing from all these witnesses about the different stories that are being told from Ben over the course of this weekend, it might just be a perfect normal mode of operation for his family to say, oh, he just always tells us stories and we just got to try to keep him out of trouble. And that's that. So I don't know. I don't know if they really have the details that Misty and her family are going to be looking for. Well, remember that you can find all the information and links you need for any specific episode all together in one place at www.threemeninamystery.com, and that's with the number 3. If you have any tips to call in on Allison's case, please contact the Washington County Sheriff's Investigation Department at 593-846-2500. If you need to remain anonymous, you can call Crime Stoppers of Oregon at 503-823-HELP. That's 503-823-4357.
Any feedback, corrections, or new details can be sent to us via email at 3men, that's with the number 3, at 3meninamystery.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter. Our handle is at 3meninamystery. You can also find us on Facebook.
3 Men in a Mystery is produced by John Lorden, Mike Morford, and Gray Hughes.
Please be sure to rate us on the podcasting platform that you found us on and help us grow by telling your friends and family about us.
Why was Ben arrested? What is his criminal background? We'll go into that and much more on the next episode. Continue the investigation with us next week. I'm John Lorden.
Mike Morford.
And I'm Gray Hughes.
And we are 3 Men and a Mystery.